Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the aspect ratio widget. The aspect ratio widget allows you to size a child widget based on a width, height and an aspect ratio. You'll notice our homepage contains a scaffold with an app bar, and inside the body of the scaffold we're going to create a new aspect ratio widget. The aspect ratio requires the parameter aspect ratio to be provided, and it also accepts a child widget which is to be sized based on the aspect ratio. For example, we'll specify an aspect ratio of 1, and for the purposes of this demonstration we will create a container as the child with a colour of red, like so. You'll notice that the child container has the same width and height. That's because the height is determined by the width divided by an aspect ratio of 1 to give an identical height. You'll notice with an aspect ratio of 2, the height is determined by the width divided by 2, giving us a height that is essentially half the width. To have a more finer grained control over the widths and heights of the child inside the aspect ratio widget, we can wrap the aspect ratio in a constrained box. The constrained box allows us to specify box constraints determining a minimum width and height and a maximum width and height. For example, specifying a maximum width of 100, like so, you'll notice how the container becomes 100 wide, and it has a height of 100 divided by 2, meaning the height is 50, half of 100. This matches the aspect ratio of 2. You'll notice we could also apply a maximum height. If we applied a maximum height of 100, you'll notice no change. That's because the height of 50 falls inside the range of a minimum height of 0 and a maximum height of 100. By default, the aspect ratio determines its child width by filling up all of the width available to it and then working out the height based on the width divided by the aspect ratio. However, when this is not possible, it will adjust its width and height to meet any constraints provided by its parent, in this case, the constrained box widget. For example, if we were to specify a maximum height of 10, for example, you'll notice how the aspect ratio will automatically determine the width and height based on those updated box constraints. For example, the height would be 10 in this case, and the width would be 20, the width being 2 times the height. If we were to set the maximum height back up to 100, like so, you'll notice the aspect ratio takes over again with a maximum width of 100, meaning the width of the container is 100, and the height then being 50, the width divided by 2, the aspect ratio. If we were to specify a minimum height of 100, you'll notice how the aspect ratio is completely ignored. That's because by default the aspect ratio will try and fit the aspect ratio into its child based on the constraints. However, if this is not possible, then the aspect ratio will be ignored and the child widget will be adjusted to fit into the constraints provided by the box constraints of the parent widget, in this case the constrained box. You'll notice how the width is 100 and the height is 100, ignoring the aspect ratio of 2, because the aspect ratio of 2 does not fit with the box constraints of a maximum width of 100 and a minimum height of 100. Therefore, the aspect ratio will simply size its container based on those box constraints, ignoring the aspect ratio. I hope therefore that you found this useful, a look at the aspect ratio widgets allowing you to control the width and height of the child based on an aspect ratio, provided that the aspect ratio adheres to any and all box constraints provided by the parent widget of the aspect ratio widget. As I say, I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much for watching.